Well, it's very nice to be here. I've been asked to sing a verse and chorus of a little marching song of mine the boys adopted more or less during the war. I don't have to tell you I'm not much of a vocalist, but I'll do the best I can with it. So we'll just imagine for the moment we're back in 1917 and the orders from the front. Forward march, Doctor. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, don't delay, go today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad, and tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Matt Yancik. I'm the founder and I am the head game master of Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain. Welcome to episode 4 of the FiERCE BRooD. This is an RPG actual play of historic fiction. And in each episode, we blend actual locations and events and historic figures from Boston of 1918 with a fictional story and fictional characters of our own creation. For those of you that are watching and listening at home, if you do so carefully, you might notice quite a few historic Easter eggs planted throughout our episodes. Don't be afraid to speak up in the chat. It's all part of the fun, and feel free to call us on anything that you feel is not consistent with 1918 Boston, except for the parts that are all supernatural and cosmic. On those, we ask that you be patient and allow for the parameters of our fictional story. So, as always, I'm joined by my trusted allies and very good friends, four buddies that I've been playing role-playing games with for nearly 35-something years. If you look to your right, my left, you will see Steve. Steve, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit more importantly about your character?
Sure. So I'm Steve, and I am portraying Ezekiel Z. Brewster, who is an exiled adept, which is one of the classes in the game. But my character, Z, is a seminarian, actually. And he's from originally a Boston Brahmin family and ended up in a foster home and then became a Catholic, or is studying to become a Catholic priest.
Cool. Thank you very much, Steve. If you look to your left, my lower right, you'll see another good buddy of mine, James. James, can you tell us a little something about yourself and, more importantly, something about your character?
Sure. I'm James. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Happy to be playing tonight. And I'm playing the character Vesper Evenwing, who is a down in his luck composer who was used to flit in the high societies with some good allies amongst the art scene of Boston. But that has fallen on hard times through this war and pandemic, with certain of his mentors disappearing and the pandemic affecting the seasons of music in the city. And I am joined by my trusty cat, Black Cat Mars, and I'm a bit of a con man trying to keep within these
In the
high
game, of course,
societies.
not in real life, you're saying, right?
Oh, sorry. My character, he's just a peach.
Ah, right. Okay, got it. And I'm actually also glad you mentioned the cat. I was going to sort of segue into the fact that I also have a cat in reality here in the home. And
nice.
So if I suddenly like run or dart off, it's only because my cat has either thrown up or perhaps started clawing something that it should not be clawing.
Well,
yes.
inspired by real life is my cat, who my black cat is named Mars, and I too will await her having a bit of vomit in the corner. we can bond on that.
Yeah, I guess so, right? We'll know that the stars have aligned if both of our cats throw up at the same time. Next up, we have another good buddy of mine, Jared, who will introduce himself and, as I've said a few times before, more importantly, his character. Jared, can you tell us a little bit about your character?
Sure. I am playing Thomas Brandon Dietrich, usually goes by TBD. He is a graceful explorer who learns quickly. He has spent most of his career as sort of a field research scientist, sort of on the corporate side of pharmaceutical companies. But in a job interview at Harvard Medical School, he ran into all this nonsense.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Not to be confused with the actual nonsense that's going on right now, but we're talking about nonsense from 1918.
Right.
Last but not least, we have my good buddy Frank, who will be playing... I'm turning it over to you, Frank.
Is it my turn? I'm getting into character.
That's right. You couldn't tell if I were talking. That's right.
I'm playing Francis Murphy. I go by Frank or Murph. Either one's fine by me. I'm a middle-aged, very large Irishman. I'm a night watchman at the rail yard in South Boston. Ex-police officer. Got injured on the job in a very unusual way, so I carry a limping left leg along with me, which sometimes slows me down, but I get by because I am one of the guys who carries a piece. I have a revolver on me. So look out, bad guys.
And look out your foot, correct? I mean, I don't know. Okay, never mind. That's just a little misfired humor that misfired. Okay. Anyway.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I figured you wouldn't get it, but that's okay. Nobody gets my jokes. You're just like my students. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. In prior episodes of the Fierce Brood, our four very unlikely heroes found themselves at Fenway Park on September 9th of 1918 to watch I've screwed up already. It was September 11th of 1918 to watch the sixth game of the World Series featuring the Boston Red Sox versus the Chicago Cubs. Unfortunately, though, they didn't get to see the end of the game as they were summoned by messages mysteriously found in their pockets. 4 round orbs of stained glass. And these orbs, these mysterious messages, summoned them to Fenway Park's Gate C, where a scuffle turned into an interdimensional trip to a deep, unknown underground basement, shall we say, for a lack of a better word. And there our heroes found themselves between a rock and a hard place. So there was one man by the name of Harold Coatsworth III, member of the Watch and Ward Society, and another man by the name of Leonard Cloudy, who represented the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. Each man lay claim to a young boy who we came to know as Pascal, caught in the middle with two adult companions. So Pascal, it seemed, he wielded powers the likes of which none have ever seen before, and after some tense discussion and hints of violence, Vesper subdued Coatsworth by supernatural means, while his companions made a hasty escape. So pursued by Coatsworth from the interdimensional underground beneath Fenway to the safer spaces of our own Boston Public Library, which is just a little ways away from me. I am running this game from Boston. The companions faced off against the villain and his minions, a pair of snarling creatures that Vesper discovered or recollected were called skin dogs. So they ultimately escaped into a tunnel leading to the underground crypts of the Old North Church in the mostly Italian neighborhood of North End in Boston. At the insistence of Pascal, our heroes search the crypts beneath the church frantically, uncovering the final resting place of three figures from Boston's forgotten past. Brick by brick, they tore down the wall, closing up the crypt, revealing a chamber in which the three members of the child's family were presumed to rest. So, composed of the couple John and Alice and their daughter Elizabeth, the three corpses seem anything but at rest. Instead, the three huddle together in a corner with knees to their chests, their corpses weathered and desiccated by the elements and by time. As light falls into the crypt, deep beneath the Old North Church on the north end, the largest of the three corpses bares its skeletal teeth, and there's a sound like dry leather being stretched over polished wood as it slowly stretches its arms protectively around its two companions. And that's about the point where we find our heroes tonight, one very late night in mid-October of 1918 in the city of Boston in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And now at this point, I will turn the game over to my players and ask if there's anything you'd like clarified, anything you'd like to point out, or anything you'd just generally like to discuss concerning where we left off before we actually start playing.
How much of the wall has been broken through at this point, and how much of a distance is there between us and the child?
Between yourself and the child.
Not the child, not
The
Pascal,
family.
but the family.
You're talking about the family. Taking
Yes.
a look ahead at what you into the crypt itself, it's quite dark, but the light extends just to the tips of the shoes that these three corpses wear, and you estimate it's probably around 20 feet or so between yourselves outside the wall and then these three corpses that are huddled and moving within the darkness. I would also say that the hole through which you're looking is probably, well, you tell me. Who were the people that were actually pulling the bricks out? Why don't you tell me about how large that hole is?
Probably Frank and I, right?
I was tearing those bricks real good.
You were
Yeah.
tearing them down? So what do you think?
Yeah.
Maybe a yard and a half across?
Yeah, I think safely, once we got that bit of brick out, we were able to wiggle and jostle and pry and just sort of toss them over the shoulder. I'm feeling like it's probably about a square meter opening and to let enough light in.
Mm-hmm.
We
Sounds
can
right.
pull more bricks out too.
Sounds right to me. And indeed you could, as those bricks are coming away, nice and easy. Each one brick by brick. And if you do continue, then you're going to open up an even larger hole. Anyone else with any questions about
I have a
what is
question.
going on? Go ahead.
What have we been told about the child's family?
So far, you haven't really been told very much about the child's family. The child has been too excited by all that's going on and by getting to this point. And so in all of that kind of like rush and in the jumble of what's been happening tonight, you haven't really talked very much to the child.
We learned a couple of things, right? We learned that Pascal's mission was to wake up Mr. Childs.
That is true.
Family. He wanted to go see John Ellis and Lizzie.
Yeah.
And we also learned that these people are part of the title of the game, the Fierce BRooD, right? They were exiles from, I'm never going to be able to pronounce the name of that world. When they were hunted, that's what I said. And they had to go. They had to go into hiding, sleep. So I think that's what we learned.
Yeah. As far as the child's family goes, you really haven't learned very much. I'm pretty sure, and now I didn't go back and watch all 3 episodes concurrently, but from what I recollect, you did learn that the child was from an area what you thought and presumed to be the North End, but which the child kept calling the riots. And when you did a little bit of a search, what you found out is that there were draft riots for the Civil War leading up to it in the North End from that time. Now, that's not to say that the child is actually from that time period, only that the child was referring to the North End as the riots. Any other questions from the players? Oh, were you going to say something, Frank, or were you just scratching the head? So with that, then, I will just sort of summarize what you see around you now. So you are under the Old North Church, from what you understand. You're within these labyrinthine crypts, hallways twisting this way and that. And looking around, there are crypts every 10, 15, 20 feet, composed of doors made out of wood, sometimes made out of slate, sometimes actually just bricked up like the one that you have just sort of removed the bricks from. Leonard Cloudy is there beside you, and the young boy is actually quite excited to be looking and seeing into the crypt as you remove these bricks. What would you all like to do? Back
up and say, holy shit, they are alive, and kind of nudge the kid and then turn to Cloudy. How is this even possible?
So when you say this, there's a pop, and the larger of the corpses, their head cocks in your direction as if it has heard what you said. And Cloudy looks at you rather sheepishly and says, as I mentioned before, there are other worlds, there are other places, other worlds, other places that exist. There are other ways. Death is not really the end.
Yes, it is only a transition, but what is this? Murphy, shine your light in there.
Shining your light inside, you illuminate what are obviously 3 corpses. And now that you're shining that light at them, you get a very clear look. Their skin is shrunken and dried like parchment. It is thin, revealing what, and as you play the light over the surface of this skin stretched tight as a drum, you can almost see through it. You're not sure, but what you might be looking at are the actual skeletons within this cocooning dried flesh. And as soon as you shine this light, the larger of the corpses, who is wearing a hat, a brimmed hat that is kind of tilted downward, tightens its grip on the 2 other corpses. And now that you're looking again with that light, you can see that the larger of the 2 smaller corpses has long hair and seems to be wearing a dress, a fine dress that is moth-eaten and rotten, covered in mold. And within the medium-sized corpse's arms, the one that seems to be female, there is an even smaller corpse with long hair. But the odd thing about this corpse, obviously this child, is that its head is bent forward and buried in the bosom of the woman, the female corpse that holds it. And there's something oddly crooked about the neck. And they sit there almost shivering.
Yeah, that's the only odd thing about this situation. Not the fact that there's basically ancient skeletonized remains moving around. Where's the kid?
I let out a scoff and compose myself and just say, "Pfft," and stride forward. This is nothing real.
Are you walking up to them?
Walk right in, yeah.
As you walk in, Cloudy just reacts and he grabs at your coat. And it's not forceful, but I mean, you can stop if you want to, or you could keep going. Yeah.
I shake him off and look at him like he's really been rude to me, something like that, and just turn and look to him.
I mean no offense, sir, but please, they must be awoken. And he looks down to the young boy, who looks up at you. And then he looks down, the boy, Pascal, looks down at your cat, Mars. And there's a moment where it's almost like Mars and Pascal, something passes between them. And then the boy looks back up at Cloudy and he nods. And then the boy, very, respectfully, very, very gently, moves between the bricks as if he's sort of overcome by a sense of respect now, something that maybe he hadn't, in all the excitement, perhaps he forgot that he needed to be respectful. And like a schoolboy, he heads forward and he puts first one leg over the hole, entering into the crypt, and then using the bricks for reinforcement, he steps over again and starts to walk into
I'll try and use the flashlight to keep it lit for him.
So blazing essentially a path of light for the boy, he walks through it, and the harsh shadow of his body passes across the corpses as he steps forward and approaches them. And you see that they begin to huddle, and now they shiver, and you hear a very quiet and faint rasping. And what you realize is that these three corpses seem to be coming back. They seem to be waking up. And the boy, unless you stop him, he approaches them, kneels down.
I do want to move in to the room after him, but first I exchange a look with Mars, and I graciously invite the cat inside the room to go first, and then I go forth afterward, and then move myself out of the path of the light so I'm not blocking anything. But I want to stand, at least I'm a little fearful for the child in this, because I still feel like there's something very wrong here beyond what we probably think supernaturally is happening.
Yeah.
I say it to Vesper, be careful. We don't know what force is animating these bodies. That the souls may not be animating those things.
Cloudy looks at you and he smiles and nods apologetically. I assure you that the souls do still inhabit those bodies. They have not left those bodies. I can assure you of that. There's no harm they will do to you, particularly in this state.
I want to move back a little and position myself so I can watch both the tomb where this is happening with the family and the entrance from where we came in, because this is definitely not the last time we've seen Coatsworth.
I'm going to keep the I'm going to keep the flashlight in the hole, but continue to work away on the bricks to make this hole larger in case we need to go in and extract Pascal, that little black cat, or now Vesper, who's hauling himself in there.
I like, Dietrich, your way of thinking. You do notice, as you look back, the way you came. And now I'm going to flash back for a moment to something we may or may not have forgotten amongst us. But the last that you saw of Harold Coatsworth III, he had actually inhaled several sniffs of this substance that you had sniffed earlier on. And he had kind of folded inward on himself and disappeared. Now, this was in the basement of the Boston Public Library. So as you look down the way that you came, Dietrich, what you see is a shadow, or maybe a few, that are flickering against some reflections of some sort off in the distance. And that's not to say that it's necessarily anything that you have to worry about, but this does remind you of the way in which you found yourselves pursued by Harold Coatsworth III through the streets of Boston earlier on in the evening.
All right, I'm going to call it a warning. Cloudy, hurry this up because we may have incoming.
Cloudy looks over at you and nods, and then he looks at each one of you there, the priest, the composer turned conman, and the night watchman. Please, he's right. We, I fear, have not seen the last of Mr. Coatsworth. Is there any way we can get this done quickly? And he looks at the boy as if the boy might answer him, but the boy is now kneeling down, and he's actually got his arms outstretched, holding or laying his hands on the shoulders of the corpses. And there's a chill that may or may not go through each one of you as you see this boy almost lovingly stroking these bodies and their moth-ridden, moldy clothing. As you enter, Vesper, behind the boy, you see this, and you see now that it appears like these three corpses are actually struggling to breathe, and you hear the boy whispering something to them.
I'm kind of aghast about this, but fascinated, yet I honestly can't believe these creatures would be breathing. So I'm gonna keep moving in near him and just fixated on what we assume is John Childs, who's protecting this family, and can I decipher how long he's been in this crypt?
You can certainly try. Go ahead and make a roll.
I will.
Tell me how you want to do it too. And as usual, when you do make a roll, what I do is I decide on a scale of 1 to 10 the difficulty rating for the task, and then I multiply that number by 3. That gets me a target number, which the player then needs to equal or beat in order to succeed. And the player can lower the difficulty level just simply by adding an asset, a skill or ability, or applying a level of effort. So how would you like to approach this task?
A little carbon dating?
Pull out my tricorder I'm going to think back with my supernatural knowledge about kind of through my research in that, through those old books from Salem, from some of the magical troves I've found for what is not documentation necessarily, but sort of the illustrations between some of the ghouls and the ghast and things.
So that's 1 decrease.
Yeah, I'll just go with that.
Okay. Give it a whirl.
It's a 10.
Nice. Thinking back, you do remember a few books that you read about the crypts beneath the Old North Church. And you do remember that these crypts date back a few hundred years, actually. And they contain quite a few famous people, one of which was a former captain of the USS Constitution, whether you can believe that or not. And several other famous figures from Boston's history that you don't, and New England history in general, that you don't quite remember. There was some priest or someone that was maybe buried, actually, and you look up and you remember he may have been buried beneath the altar of the church, but that doesn't quite make sense. You're not really sure, but you do recall that. More importantly, however, what you notice are some inscriptions that look more like scratches on the bricks of the wall behind the corpses. And you would need to move in to get a better look at them.
Are they like right behind the actual corpse people?
They look like they're kind of written along the wall, and they're kind of scrawled looking at them. They're very dusty.
Yeah, now that I notice them, I'm going to kind of sidestep towards it, but I just don't want to keep my eyes off what's happening with the boy. I'm just, it's such a creepy situation. And I'm really worried about this one who's protecting the rest, that he could, I don't know, something terrible could happen at any moment. But I definitely want to move towards and kneel down towards the wall and start dusting off and see what I can find.
Dusting it off, you rub the heel of your palm along the wall. And at first what seems like something scratched into the wall, you realize it's not something scratched into the wall, but raised. And you blow along one of the bricks. And what you realize you're looking at is some sort of odd floating image, a millimeter, or perhaps a molecule above the surface of the bricks that has been etched into those bricks. It's some sort of odd writing, and you recognize it from books that you've read up in Salem, but it's different than what you saw in those books. This writing, as you look to the left and you look to the right, it's three-dimensional somehow. It's odd, and when you touch it, it appears to be raised, but when you touch it, your finger, all you feel is the texture of the brick, as if it were some sort of trick of the light.
Well, I will try to see through this trick
Mm-hmm.
with my specialized skill in doing such a thing.
Is there a skill called see through this trick?
There is, because it's attached to skeptical, and it is see through tricks, lies, deceptions, and illusions, of which I am specialized in.
Yeah.
Yeah, to even just identify the fact that it is really there or not. Even,
yeah.
I mean, this seems like just magic stuff floating in the air.
Yeah. So if you're specialized in it, that automatically lowers the difficulty rating by 2. Would you like to do anything else? Oh, you'll go with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
ladies and gentlemen, he's going with that.
Going with that.
Famous last words.
I know.
Oh, it's a big old 3.
Oof.
Nice.
It does not
Nailed it.
appear. It does not appear to be fake. It's not a trick.
Okay.
It's on the wall.
Well, it's
As
writing
far
of
as
some
you
kind,
know.
but I don't know what the writing is.
You recognize the writing from books you've seen in Salem, and you can't quite place what it is, but you're fairly certain you've seen it before. There's something very familiar about it. Meanwhile, the boy is still kneeling by the corpses.
I'm pretty unnerved, and I stand up very straight, a little too quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and just go back to perceiving what's going on and worried about what might happen.
All right. How about Murphy and Z? What are you two fellas up to?
Well, for me, having opened the hole a little bit wider in the
Mm-hmm.
past couple of moments, I'm actually using my flashlight just to get a full view of the room for 2 purposes.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure we have a full assessment of what's going on in there, that there are no other bags of bones hiding in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm just checking to see if there's anything I might be able to pick up out of this hole.
All right. And how about you, Z? What are you up to?
I'm very well spooked by this, and I really do believe that there may be some kind of, demonic forces at work. So I'm reaching into my satchel and pulling out my vial of holy water just in case. I'm not making any sudden moves, but probably uttering silent prayers to myself. But yeah, this is beyond the norm for me.
All right. So, I'd like Murphy to make an intellect roll for me. Well, you know what? If you're going to be looking around the room, you tell me. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be telling you, but you tell me which might, speed, or intellect you'd like to use, and tell me how you're going to go about looking through the room.
Well, from left to right, I'm not going in that hole by any means, but I'm going to peer in now and flash from the left corner to the right. And I'm going to be using my flashlight to help illuminate and see anything that might be in there.
There's an
I'm
asset.
going to use my faculties, what little I can muster up,
Is this faculty?
and use
does
an
the-
intellect.
Okay, so faculty, it translates into effort.
Effort on the intellect side.
Mm-hmm.
It's a stretch, I know, but I can observe things like mad.
Yeah. And anything else, or is that it?
Yeah, that's gonna do it. None of my skills will assist me in this particular endeavor.
All right, make your roll.
So I rolled a 10.
Very nice. So you notice quite a few things as you look around the room. So first of all, when you observe Vesper as he kind of kneels down and takes a look at the wall, at first you just think he's looking at the wall. But then after sort of tracking and watching what he's doing, your night watchman intellect and intuition tells you that there's something scrawled on the wall, something that you just see as some sort of writing or something. You've seen messages and things like that written on walls all across Boston through your entire lives. In fact, you've written half of the messages, half of the things, the dirty limericks in Boston can be attributed
I like a good bit of graffiti
to
sometimes.
your character. That's right. The other thing you notice is that there appear to be 3 items that catch the light in the far corner, the far right of the room, looking inward and back towards the right. And on top of that, you notice, kind of buried, and it's hard to see who's holding it, but you notice a satchel-like, a leather satchel-like, almost a case that looks as if it's kind of clipped closed. It's moth-eaten and moldy, and it's got some brass hinges on it and a lock. It looks very similar to the that sort of pouch-like case that Cloudy offered you back in the basement of Fenway. Oh, one more thing. You notice something rather long, kind of like a pencil, on the ground near Vesper's feet or knees, whether he's, I'm not sure if he's kneeling or whatever, but and then as he gets up, he brushes it with his foot and it kind of twirls a bit, skids.
Can I reach that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just walk up to those things, looking, and you pick it up.
Yeah.
You take a look at it. It looks like I just described. It looks like a pencil. However, it's no pencil you've ever seen before. And it's actually, as you turn it into the light, it's a long, for lack of a better word, and to use an anachronism, it's a long stylus. And as you hold it, it almost projects, when you get it close to your hand or close to objects, it projects light. And as you tap it lightly against your hand, it leaves a trail of something kind of scratchy looking that sort of evaporates after you shake your hand.
It's pretty interesting. I'm going to slide it into my pocket.
And Vesper, I don't know if you're actually I assume you're kind of watching this because, unless Murphy's doing this in secret, but he's standing. You guys are standing right next to each other. You are free to interject or say stop.
Hey, I found the writing, man. That's my stylus. No, if he wants to be secretive about that's fine. I'm really quite fixated on what's happening with the boy and the family. But since he comes right next to me and stoops down and picks something up, I am going to side-eye that and observe. And when he secrets in his pocket, I envision it like he just kind of does it. Mm-hmm. And I will studiously look away. And just mark that in my brain.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Back to Dietrich. Dietrich, those shadows are kind of flitting around as if off of reflections, but now they seem to be getting a little bit closer, or it could be your imagination.
Okay. Then how many shimmering, shadowy shapes do I see? Can I tell there's a distinction?
I would say you don't even have to roll for this. It looks like there are 3 or 4, but you're not quite sure, because as they're coming down or up this tunnel toward you, sometimes it looks like they're either passing in front of each other or there are multiple.
Okay. Then what I'm going to do is yell out one more time. Mm-hmm. Guys, we really got to speed this up. And I'm actually going to draw my weapon. Mm-hmm. Frank is not actually the only person who has a pistol. I actually have a Colt M1911.
Oh.
Is this issued by your college?
No, it's definitely not issued by them. No, this is I picked up because I'm just a careful guy.
I like it. Okay, got it. So as you pull your weapon and ready yourself, those shadows are now getting closer, and you hear what appears, what may or may not be
dogs
barking.
God damn it. All right, let's put these suckers down.
Back to the crypt, with Dietrich's yell. Cloudy now looks very, very concerned, and he looks back down out toward Dietrich and leans into the crypt, and he whispers in a loud whisper towards the boy to please hurry. Whatever you're doing, boy, please hurry. And with that, the boy kind of casually looks back at Cloudy, and he looks at Mars and crouches down next to Mars. So, Vesper, can you tell me anything, or can you tell us anything about Mars?
Mars is a beautiful cat. Just a really nice looking, straight, shiny black coat. Just a fairly elongated, pointed snoot for a little kitty, and is rather petite, more long and thin, with an alert tail and a very calm demeanor.
What are
And
Mars's...
so at this moment, she would be sitting, down on her back legs with her front up and just regarding Pascal as he's doing his work.
And what are Mars's properties? Does Mars actually have abilities or skills of some sort, or?
Mars is able to kind of just appear where I would like that to happen. And whether I can telepathically or otherwise communicate with Mars is something I will do. Whether it truly works or not is up to just anyone to consider on their own. But aside from she would, but they wouldn't necessarily be manifest in some kind of magical way visible.
Okay. Just checking on that, because Pascal seems to have taken an interest in Mars and is now kneeling beside Mars and petting Mars. He leans over and he whispers into Mars's ear, and Mars gives a little bit of a meow. And then Mars does that thing that cats like to do, which is to say that Mars climbs up on the corpses, gets into their lap, and starts poking around at them and sniffing underneath the chin. And as Mars does this, the youngest corpse, presumably the child, most likely Elizabeth, if this is the child's family, her hand, like a crumpled piece of paper, pops and cracks, shaking, moves to Mars's head, and then gently begins to stroke. And Mars is doing more of the stroking than the young girl is, because it appears that the joints of the young girl's arms are not really working very well. And Mars is just happily purring now and rubbing her face along this girl's paper-thin, leathery hand. And Pascal looks up, and she likes Mars. Will she be able to play with Mars?
I take a step forward and just immediately say, oh, but of course, which is very different from how I had been regarding the situation, because one thing I do know with this cat is that its judgment is unimpeachable. So that has really made me comfortable about this situation, at least, still very skeptical and frightened for the fact that these are three corpses, but knowing that at least danger from them is alleviated.
And when you say this, the girl looks up to you, and this is stunning to you as her head pivots as if on a dry old wooden ball bearing, creaking the whole time, and you think you see what might be a smile as it spreads across her lips, and then her head tilts back down to the cat, and she leans forward just an inch now. And now you know that this is not your imagination. This is actually happening. And she begins to pet the cat. And you can hear something, a little girl's voice, feeding itself through her mouth. But you can't make out what she's saying. But it sounds like almost a song through a woodwind instrument that's been snapped in half with the wind passing across a shattered reed, as if perhaps her vocal cords hadn't healed yet, or are so far gone that she can barely speak. And when that happens, the arms around her tighten, and the two who now you are sure are her parents look up at you as if to thank you, and then they turn their head back to Mars and their daughter. And
I look to Mars real quick, who looks back, and I nod in understanding as then Mars goes back to playing with the girl and just say, yes, I know this tune, but it's so old.
And maybe indeed you do. And with that, you see the father's hand moving and toward something that you hadn't noticed, Vesper, but you had seen from the onset. It moves toward that case, that pouch-like case with a brass snaps and a hook and a brass oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten what they're called. Hinges. And it reaches for them, and with the clumsiness that you would expect from a corpse, it reaches as if to pick it up and then knocks this case down to the ground, and it skitters and lands at your feet, Murphy. Z, you're witness to all of this. Maybe not the exact details of it, but are you up to anything watching behind with Cloudy?
No, I'm still kind of fascinated by it. Still a little bit afraid. I think I'm keeping a sharp eye on what Pascal is doing, just to make sure that he doesn't get into any kind of trouble. And I kind of want to see what the child's, like, do they, or any of them anyway, and maybe I can make a roll for this, but do they seem to be getting more filled with life, like reviving in some way? Or
make an intellect roll.
Sure.
Let me know if you want to help yourself in any way, shape, or form. They do seem to be more animated, but as far as life goes, that's something you'll.
Yeah, I'll use I'll use an effort.
Okay.
And
reducing it by 1.
And I think that's pretty much it. So I'll just do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did roll an 18, which is nice.
Nice. You are certain somehow that it's true that they've been kind of moving, and as they move, you can see them shaking off the rust and the crust of a long, long time spent behind this wall within this crypt. You see cobwebs that kind of dangle off and are caught in some breeze coming from somewhere from within the caverns of the crypt. But you get this feeling, it looks like there's more color to their flesh, but it could be your imagination, but they appear to be waking up.
All right. I want to call out to Pascal and say, they appear to be waking up. Where do we go from here? Are we in Tremontaine?
Pascal looks at you and he just laughs, and then Cloudy leans in. We are not in Tremontaine right now. We are still in what you would call Boston. but Tremontaine is always near. And the boy now reaches for the object, the case that is at your feet, and he picks it up, and he tries to open it, but he can't quite get it open. It looks like it's kind of rusted shut at this point, and he holds it up to you, Murphy, expectantly.
I'll take it, and would you like me to open this?
Please, yes, this is what they need.
And I am going to attempt to pry it open, which will probably include a might check of some sort.
I was going to say, for your adult hands, it's not like it's a child-proof aspirin bottle in this particular case. If it were a child-proof aspirin bottle, I'd make you roll for it, but this is not. You're able to flick off some of the rust and get that thing open. And when you open it up, some very dried-looking snuff, this bluishly tinted snuff, is there inside. And you almost have to catch it very quickly. And the boy, looks up at it, and he inhales. And he reaches for it, and he's just going to take it from you unless you're going to stop him.
Yeah.
And
here you go. No.
He takes it, and he goes over to the corpses, and he leans in, and he takes a pinch, and he puts it under the man's nose. And you can see it's the teeth now as its wrinkled lips bear back, and is that movement in its nose, and you hear a deep as it inhales, and you watch the snuff go up in one nostril and then the other, and the corpse shakes, and the boy does the same thing with the other two, and the mother breathes deeply and does the same. And then the child is still playing with Mars and petting Mars, and Pascal has to remind the child, and the child leans in and with the child just grabs it and takes it. And you can hear, as the corpses are moving now, you hear the cracking and rustling like a bag full of leaves as they move and work the kinks out of their bodies. Out of their joints. Back to Dietrich. Dietrich, you now see that coming up very quickly now are 3 shadows at least, and maybe 4. These appear very much to be what you heard Vesper refer to as the skin dogs. And the scary thing about these skin dogs is that they're not just moving on the floor, they're moving on the walls, and they transfer themselves, they move to the ceiling. Now, when I say skin dogs, I'm not saying that they're in their split form. They appear to be in their joined form, in which they're forming like a rather tall and creepy-looking humanoid creature with crepe paper-like skin that's kind of hanging off of it. And they are moving, and they're probably going to be here in 30 seconds or so. Maybe a minute, if you're lucky.
I want to run over to Cloudy and say, Cloudy, do you have any more of that snuff? I need to level the playing field. There's skin dogs incoming.
He looks shocked, and as he looks, what do you want me to do? And you can see in his breast pocket where that case is kind of slipped into his inner jacket, and he seems like completely. This guy is not used to fighting. He's not used to combat.
Right.
He just looks at you, and his monocle actually, right, which I forgot to mention for several games, but I did in the first game, actually just pops out of his eye, and dangles.
Just want to get right in his face and say, "Give me some."
He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a pen, tosses it, reaches back into his pocket. He pulls out a handkerchief, tosses that. He reaches back into his pocket. I'm sorry, pockets can be tricky. tricky things that sometimes. Let me think of something else. And he pulls out, indeed, that case. It's always there when you're not thinking about it. And he hands it over to you and pops it. And what you see is a very fancy looking, again, this is like half pouch, half case with like little brass kind of like clips and a latch on it and a hinge. And he opens it up and it looks like it almost looks like what you would see in a woman's makeup case, except instead of multiple like colors of makeup, it looks more like there are multiple, how can we put it? Multiple grades or blends of snuff. What? Which one did you want?
I don't know, just enough to make me as fast as they are.
Speed, then. You want speed.
Sure.
The red. Take the red.
All right, I'll take some red.
So you pinch it in your fingers and sniff, and suddenly you get that feeling again, like your body is vibrating and you can almost feel your hair growing, and you realize with confidence that you're fast. Why didn't you ever know you were fast? Why did you not go harder and like why didn't you go for track when you were younger? Like, man, you're not in your prime now. You were back then. Oh man, I should have been. All tasks related to speed for the next 10 minutes, we'll say, are eased by 1. Okay, so write that down because I will never ever remember that.
My internet cut out. What was it again?
Oh, sorry. I said you get no benefits at all.
As the public service announcement, kids, don't do drugs.
Yeah.
I know, right? Well, it is 18 plus. So what I had said was that you feel fast now, and all tasks for the next 10 minutes related to speed are eased by 1 step.
Okay.
Please write that down because I will never remember it. That was how I concluded.
I do like that the introduction of this mysterious powder essentially is that it's just speed.
Oh, on
Just
so
doing
many
speed.
levels. So many levels. We're just opening the doors to perception here, really.
Right.
And so with that now, you
And if
feel
I still
fast.
have time on my turn, I want to go back to my position and see if I can see the income.
Yeah, you're fast. You can get right back there with no problems. And you're not sure if others are seeing you fast, but it's almost like you look around you and you're like, why does life move so slow? I don't get this. Why is everybody just like hanging out? Like,
how am I moving in relation to the dogs now?
oh, you feel like you can completely, looking down, you see them. And did I say 30 seconds to a minute before? It feels like they're going to be here in about 6 hours at this rate. But you can certainly speed things up by taking the battle to them if you wanted. But it feels like that. I'm not saying it is that. I'm just saying it feels like that.
Okay.
You've got time. You can go ahead and if you want to do something else.
I will actually go ahead and take the battle to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Take advantage of this. Get in fairly close.
So you're going to close the distance between them as they come at you?
Yeah.
So moving down.
And then be prepared to move back.
Mm-hmm. So moving down the hall, you realize, of course, that you've enhanced your speed, but not necessarily your intelligence or your might. But you're heading straight down that hallway, and you start to close the distance, and now you can see indeed that there are 4. And they seem to be hopping, flitting from wall to ceiling to floor, and the 4 of them are sort of coming right at you. It's not yet time to declare initiative, but when I come right back to you, we are going to do that. All right, so you might want to be thinking about that. That's the feeling you get. Back at the room,
just to clarify though, are pistol attacks might or speed attacks?
Well, here's the great thing about Cypher system is that you negotiate with me.
Okay.
If you can make it seem logical one way or another, I'll go with that. And that's okay. So that's one of the first things
Right.
that's always done in Cypher is that, and I'll actually put the rules, I'll put the basic rules up for everybody to kind of see. But the first thing that is done when you are about to enter into, some sort of dice rolling, the task stat is determined by the GM and the player. So if you want to convince me, if you want to try to convince me that, firing off your weapon for some reason is a speed task, as long as you can get me to buy it, I will back you up on it. Okay?
All right.
All right. So let's head back to the crypt. And now these corpses are herky-jerky moving. And now the three of you can actually see that they do seem to be... They're not quite as desiccated as you had first thought. And as a matter of fact, the woman actually leans in and she reaches out and she grabs that little container and that case and she presses her nose up to it and takes a really deep inhale on that snuff, and you visibly see a shockwave of fresh or rejuvenated flesh as it moves from her nose, and then it almost changes. It darkens the color of her hair, which had been until that point a creepy white, a ghostly white color. But then her husband kind of puts his hand out against her, and you hear him say something. Though you can't understand what it is that they're saying. Cloudy looks at the three of you from one to the other, and he smiles, and the boy looks back at each of you, and he now is smiling and excited. And he claps his hands, and he leans into Mars, and he starts petting Mars. He's like, oh, thank you, Mars. Thank you for helping us out. It's all up to you. Mars, you're a good girl. Are you a good girl? Come here. And Mars starts, like, marching all over him. And I don't know how Mars would react, Vesper, but he tries to pick her up. Would she go with this, or is she going to...
She doesn't really like that. And as he's doing that, I'm tolerant of it, but I reach out one hand and just make a gesture, and Mars just extricates herself very gracefully away.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of guide her around my back of my leg, and she's out of sight.
Okay, perfect. All right.
And I just, as I'm leaning there, I'm like, have we completed the task, Pascal? We have some excitement out in the hall.
He looks over at you. Yes, we're done. We're done. Are we going to Vagaver now? Are we going back to Tremontaine?
I raise an eyebrow and just look to Cloudy.
Cloudy looks at the boy and looks at you. We will return. We need to take them back as quickly as possible. I feel.
How will we get there? Where will we go to get there?
Is that back in Fenway?
Cloudy looks at each of you as you ask this. No, it's back in Vagaver. And he holds out the snuff case with the different blends in it. Again, you don't need to come with us. You've done so much already. I've already told you this. But if you could go just a little bit farther, we would all be very appreciative of your help. But please, he snaps the case shut. Do not feel obligated.
So we're going right now then?
If we can, it would be good.
I call out towards the hall. Harvard, it's time to go. We're leaving.
So with that, we will hop back to Harvard, your new nickname, Dietrich. So you are now about to enter combat. I'm about to have you roll for initiative. But if you want, you're feeling very quick. You're feeling very fast. I can give you maybe one more action before this combat starts. They are coming right at you.
What is the environment like?
So you're in
that tunnel.
You're basically in a bottleneck, and the skin dogs seem to have moved way past the ravine with the waterfall and the flowing water.
Okay.
Looking around you, you're at about that point, and you may not remember this, but I had described that it seemed like the tunnel had kind of transitioned from one form of architecture to another. You're in the form of architecture that more matches that of the crypts.
Okay. Is there a door or some other way to barricade the entrance?
What you see as you look up, you see several arches composed on this side of brick, and then just a foot or so on the other. They are composed. It is composed of wood. So in other words, it's the seam where the two are meeting. There's nothing necessarily there to barricade, except if you look to your left and to your right, there are enormous wooden doors on one side, on the right side we'll say, and then on the left side there are doors that are made from, believe it or not, large pieces of slate that look as if they were kind of leaned up against the crypt that they are closing, presumably.
Are either of them on hinges?
The slate is actually not on hinges. If you could like somehow move it, like and place it, you might be able to pop it out of there. The door does appear to be on a hinge, and it's opening in your favor. It's opening out into the hall, toward.
Will that block the entire entrance?
You could conceivably block the entrance if you wanted. It doesn't feel like it would be a very secure sort of barrier, but it might slow them down.
And do I see anything else in the area to brace that door with?
Lots of bricks on the ground. There's debris. If you want to do a deeper search, I'm kind of reaching the limit as to what
I'm going to give you.
But on the other hand, we can also say that while they were kind of doing stuff, you might have looked around. So I'll give you one intellect roll if you want to see, and tell me what you think would be in this passage where these two forms of architecture meet. What might be there?
Definitely plenty of bricks and maybe some other scraps of wood that were used from either making coffins or other doors or other ornaments to put in the shrine.
Sure, go ahead and make your roll, and let me know if you want to apply effort or. You're really rolling that. Really.
No,
like a drum roll.
I am gonna go ahead and apply one level of effort.
Yeah, sure.
Only roll the 5.
Looking around, you just see a lot of bricks that you could kind of stack. There are a few concrete blocks too, and I assume that you do your best to kind of get those things into place after having kind of opened the door up and it creaks, and then you pull that slate out. And as you do this, looking into the crypts kind of quickly out of your peripheral vision, you can see that there are a few coffins in there, which presumably have a few souls in them. And you manage to close it and then stack the bricks and stack some of the concrete blocks. And just as that happens, those skin dogs, one after another, slam into the wall. And I'm going to ask you to roll for initiative at that point. Some of those bricks come flying in your direction.
Okay. I have danger sense,
Mhm.
which means I have my initiative rolls are eased, I guess 1 level, and then you're giving
Okay.
me the speed advantage of the snuff, so
How
it's
are you
being
using
eased by 1.
speed? Okay,
Yep.
but how is this a speed task? You have to tell me. I mean, I can tell you, but for fun, I'd rather you tell me. I have an idea.
It's speed is to obviously to make sure I get out of the way of any
Yeah.
debris that's going to come from them, and to put myself in position to return fire.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and make your roll.
Only a 9.
That's okay. That's still that. I mean, you've eased the task, which in this case, because you were rolling for initiative, what I'm doing is I'm going to add 2 steps onto that, and we'll add, 6 to that, which gives you a 15. That is more than enough to go first, and those creatures just barrel into it, and you can kind of see those what at first seem like hands as they punch through different holes in where the slate and the wood and the bricks are placed. These hands that begin to bark and snap at you and turn as if you can kind of see them like slobbering and ropes of spittle snapping all around. So you can go ahead and take the first action against them.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of center myself as I'm holding my pistol at these guys, and use surging confidence.
Yeah.
Which allows me to make my recovery roll, which is an action, but then I also gain an action immediately after that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to basically get to use a recovery roll for free. For free. So I rolled a 3, so +1 for the tier. That's 4 points.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add 2 to intellect and 2 to speed.
Yeah.
And then for my action, I guess I'm going to go ahead and shoot one of the dogs.
Go right ahead. Go ahead and make your roll.
All right. So I want to make this a speed test, since this is effectively sort of a dexterity based attack, which is
because they're like moving around really quickly.
Yep. And then I get the 1 bonus point for my enhanced speed. Does the weapon itself count as an asset?
Yeah, the weapon does count as an asset, and I assume this is a pistol, so it does light damage. Is that correct? It's a light.
I think this one is actually a medium pistol.
Oh,
I think it does
okay.
4.
So that'll do 4 damage.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that.
I will go ahead and use some efforts.
Yeah. So I'm going to say you don't even have to roll. You just place that, because at this point the thing is so restrained behind the wall, and it's pushing forward, that you're able to just sort of tell me how you're gonna essentially, you got the drop on one of them. Tell me how you do it. You're gonna put it down, no problem.
I'm aiming and hoping to shoot it right as its mouth opens. Put it right down its throat.
Boom, and you put it down its throat and you blast it, and the thing just comes apart. And then there's just dangling there are some fragments of teeth, and maybe there's a little pinched area where you see its trachea kind of hanging out, and then its vertebrae, the white of its vertebrae, and it's just, you're covered in a bit of that disgusting afterbirth as these ropes, these kind of crepe paper like rolls of skin flop off of it and open up, and you hear the other one. There's a second one, of course, that's yelping. Whatever one is sort of matched or paired to it, that's yelping.
Yeah.
So now all of these things are pushing through, and in order to sort of do this in a quick fashion, I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to have you make a one roll to defend yourself from all of them. So go ahead and tell me how you're defending yourself now.
I am trying to use speed defense, trying to bob and weave and move backwards. They're out of their range, so I'll use the barrier against them so they can't get all the way through.
Okay, just to let you know, if you do, the feeling you get from this barrier is that if you do back up, it may collapse, but you're not 100% sure. You're holding on to it now.
I see. All right, well then I will stay here for one round, but continue to just dodge and move and keep out of their way.
Okay, so go ahead and just make that defense roll.
But still kind of, hold it with my feet or hold it however I got to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then I am trained in speed defense, and I get the bonus from the snuff. So that's cool. And that's a natural 20.
Nice.
You tell me what happens here. So with a natural 20, you get something called a major effect. So with a 19, you get what's called a minor effect. So for those of you watching at home, the minor effect comes in on a 19. You deal 3 additional points of damage if you're actually making an offensive move. If you get a major effect at 20, you get 4 additional points. But in this particular case, Dietrich, of course, is defending himself. What's the cool thing that happens here, Dietrich? Tell us.
The cool thing is I use their aggressiveness and stupidity against them, and I have them leave a move, so they end up actually eating each other. Rather than
I like this, and this is actually a really great idea for me as a GM to get rid of, because if there are 4 skin dogs, that means that there are 8 little mouths all peeking through, and they're attacking each other. This reminds me, if anyone out there, if you have seen episode 2, Star Wars Attack of the Clones, there was a scene in which Obi-Wan Kenobi fights General Grievous. And if anyone remembers General Grievous has 4 arms, and he's carrying 4 lightsabers in his arm. And if you watch that scene carefully, what ends up happening, because the animators at Industrial Light and Magic were not insane, they end up cutting off at least 2 or maybe even 3 of his arms very quickly into the fight, so they don't have to have a 4-armed lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan Kenobi with 1. So essentially, you have done the Cipher system version of what the ILM animators did, and you have now occupied a good number of these skin dogs, and you're holding that barrier, you're holding the line. They are not getting in, and they are snapping at each other. They're just frothing at the mouth with anger and fury. And I'm going to pop back to the crypt now.
Yeah.
And just a fraction, I'd say maybe even 30 seconds have passed at this point. And Cloudy is offering the snuff.
I'm hoping the gunshot has given them some urgency.
And a gunshot has just echoed through the crypt. And it's just like, I mean, it's so intense. I don't know if you've ever fired a weapon inside a room without... Anyway, I won't go into any further. That's still being litigated in the courts. But anyway, it hurts. It hurts, and it shakes and rattles the dust and the cobwebs off of everything inside the crypt, including the 3 desiccated corpses, which are now trying to get up, trying to stumble. What do you gentlemen wish to do? Cloudy's offering you. Shall we go? We need to get out of here quickly.
Don't we need to get these folks out too?
Yes, they will come with us. The boy, he looks to the boy will be able to take them. No time to waste, unless you wish to.
There's some trouble in the hall.
There may be. Of course, more reason to move. More reason.
I kind of like glance around at everyone around me, and I throw my hands up. I just grab my knife out of my boot and I run out into the hall.
Running out into the hall, what you see is Dietrich, very far off, maybe 30 or 40 feet down the entranceway, and you can kind of see that he is holding that line and everything that I've described before with the dogs as they're like snapping at each other and the loud and the one that's just like hanging limp now. It's just, and there's just a fountain of blood pouring out of its neck. And the other one just like yelping, and the others are actually attacking that bloody one as if to gain sustenance from it. So what are you going to be doing, Vesper? Are you going to go run to help him out?
I want to think quickly about what I know about the skin dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they typically like under the control of some kind of a magical person, or just beholden to a handler?
Why don't you go ahead and make an intellect roll for that? So I know that last game you were able to recall quite a few facts about them, but give me another intellect roll for that detail.
All right. I guess this will be with the supernatural knowledge again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Okay.
So 4.
You are just barely able to remember that they are often under the control of others, and it's actually a good thing, because when these things are in the wild, they are not to be messed with.
All right, I'm going to try something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try my spin identity ability.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's something to... Oh, actually, do you consider these dogs as intelligent?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. Creatures who are intelligent, who can see, hear, understand me, that I am someone or something other than what I am, not necessarily a specific individual. It's typically, I am a simple farmer, or we're from the government, or I am your commander. In this case, I want to try to be like, I am your handler.
Yeah.
Like if it's the, a bunch of hounds in the kennel.
Yeah.
I am the houndsman.
Got it.
So yeah, I want to come. I run out. I have my knife in my hand. I know where the gunshot came from. I look down to see TBD at the wall and the dogs that I remember from upstairs, and I just immediately spin my identity to being their handler, the houndsman.
Okay, so does this thing, and this is a weird like rules question here, do you have to know who the handler is, or are you kind of pushing the suggestion on them and they project the idea of the handler on you?
I'll look it up real quick, but
don't even worry about it. You just tell me.
I think it's not, because it's very general. I mean, it could be like, I'm from the government. You're just kind of like passing it off. So basically, I'll just say like, what would you say? Heel down, dogs.
There you go. Go ahead and make your roll.
All right. This is 2 plus int, which I think is it's per dog. Crap. I don't have a lot of int left here.
If I had a nickel for every time I've said that in real life. See, I seem to say it more frequently as I get older.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like per creature or what.
Well, why don't we say this? I'll call it per creature, but per pair, right? So at this point, you see one that's kind of like getting attacked by the 3 others because they're kind of feeding at it, and they're now attacking each other, as Dietrich has kind of mentioned earlier on, but you are now seeing. So if you want to just pick out one of them that looks like it might be one of the alpha or something, and maybe control that one.
All right, I will do that, and I will expend a point of effort.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be all I can do.
And I'm going to say at that point, you don't even have to roll.
Okay.
These creatures are in no condition, and they just suddenly, one of them stops. and it blinks a few times. And you, Dietrich, are the one that actually sees the details of this as it blinks a few times. And for a moment, you're thinking, oh my God, it's going to turn on me. But really what it's doing is it shakes its head a few times, and it looks past your shoulder. And as you turn to look behind you, you see your newfound companion, Vesper, as he casts this deadly spell, casts this ability outward at the skin dogs, and it begins to growl at the other skin dogs. And the second one, because there's two of them, right? One for each hand, but it represents really one. They start now snapping at each other as if to stop, and they all kind of freeze for a moment, and they start growling at you, but looking over your shoulder as if waiting for some sort of command from Vesper. But you have no idea why they're looking to Vesper for this. Let's hop over to Z and Murphy at this point. Quickly, now we must go. Let's go to Vagaver. Let's go. We're ready, right?
We can't leave people behind here.
I could stay to help them. We're
I'll
all in danger.
Poke my head outside the crypt and say, guys, we're supposed to be going.
There's a pause now, and everybody can hear each other. And you're all kind of back together, even though you're distant from one another. And so there's a moment for you to, I'll give you a moment here to kind of communicate. And those dogs are growling.
They want us to inhale that powder and go to that place, that basement.
I'll look back at Vesper. Yo, you got this? Can I lead
Yes.
this?
We have a journey to go. Please enter the crypt. I'll have this for the moment.
All right, I'll
But quickly.
slowly back away.
As you slowly back
then-
away, it's against every little fiber of your body, like this idea. I mean, this is ridiculous. But they continue to growl, and they're looking at you. And now you can see the details, and it's really creepy. It's like when they bark, you can see that the tops of their mouths are made out of like fingers. They're not. Their muzzles and their eyes are kind of the knuckles of the outer fingers. And as they bark, they almost spread and separate like fingers. And they're growling and watching you. And there's this deep tunnel where their mouths are, except for that one that you blasted, and the blood, the last bits of blood as it pumps out, and you back up as it pools at your feet, and it spreads out slowly. And those things...
I'm going to use my speed. Use my speed to get back quick.
And I'll say you just zip past. You're nothing more than like a little dust ghost as you run past. You're the Flash heading back to the crypt. Vesper, you kind of have this moment right now where you've got them under control. How long does this last?
About an hour, unless circumstances reveal my identity.
Damn.
So then
I
what's
guess
the
unless
hurry?
someone comes along and says he's not the houndsman, then I guess we're okay.
Yeah, why don't you? Who could do that? I mean,
Yeah. So as TBD goes by me, I'm just going to sternly clap my hands. Silence. And then I'm going to follow him into the crypt.
they track and watch you, and a few times they snap at each other, the hands, and you can see some of those bricks. You can see a piece of slate. You see like a large splinter of board as it falls, and it's slowly coming apart, and you realize it's just there, and it's kind of just it's just propped up on its own. And if the thing like just took a step forward, any of these things, it would probably all just collapse. And you slowly back up, and Cloudy is handing out the snuff now, and he gives it to each, puts a few pinches, or you take a few pinches in the palm of your hand. And the boy does so as well. And the boy quickly sniffs it right up. And you can kind of see something happens to him. He almost shifts as if there are two of him for a moment, and then there's only one. And it's like a ghostly image, and then two, and then one. And he leans over. And as he's leaning over, Cloudy himself sniffs, and Cloudy becomes 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, and he nods to each of you as if waiting for this to happen. And then the boy, as he leans over, he touches those desiccated corpses. And they suddenly split into 2 and 1, and maybe even 3 or 4 and 1. But then they come right back together. And now Cloudy just nods. And when he speaks, his voice kind of echoes. Go ahead.
Now I paused for a moment, first wondering where that cat's gone to, and also wondering how we're going to get it to inhale this stuff when cats don't do what they don't want to do. But I'm also taking a quick moment to lunge deeper into the crypt to the back right corner where I saw 3 things. And I don't know what, but I want to get a closer look to see if they might be useful.
Looking at these 3 things, you're not exactly sure what they are. You would need some time to identify them, but they look very similar in, again, to use a bit of an anachronism, like technologically speaking here, they look as if they were of the same manufacturer.
Okay.
Odd
well,
devices.
At this point, we're in a hurry. I don't have time to reason this out, and the concern was that they were body parts of some sort. So I will then just scoop them up, whatever they are, sizable, and slip them into the big pocket on my overcoat.
As soon as you do that, your pocket gets very, very warm.
Ooh.
I'm just going to say that.
Heater.
It'll be good. It's mid-October. It's mid to late October 1918.
This might come in handy.
This'll had Mars been in that corner and had she vomited is my question.
Right. There you go. So each one of you, are you...
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm reluctant.
We're all here now?
So. Yeah.
I have it in my hand, and I look down kind of next to my leg down by the floor. There's nothing there, but I look down there and say, I don't know, Mars. Maybe I do have an affinity with dogs. And I take my sniff.
So each one of you in turn does so. And what you realize is your vision doubles and then maybe triples, quadruples, and maybe...
I had a hangover like this once.
And then it sifts itself back as... for a few of you, as slowly Cloudy puts his hand on each one of your shoulders, and it's as if he steadies you. And he does this one for one for one. And then what you're starting to see are ghostly images around you, and something opens up above you. And you see a shadow move very quickly. And this hole that opens up above you is like a kaleidoscopic rainbow that twists, and you feel yourselves drawn into it. At first you feel yourselves bending. And as you are drawn up into it, everybody make an intellect roll.
Nine.
So far 19.
9.
15.
11.
Dietrich, what you see, this shadowy figure that's stretching out, for a minor effect, I'm going to tell you what you see, but then you can tell me how you want to play this. What you see is Harold Coatsworth III as he's stretching out, kind of waiting, and all of you begin to twist and turn, and there's a sudden like a vacuum being filled, a shock of air as you all bend and twist, and you feel yourself transported as you head toward what you presume will be Vagaver.
So was Coatsworth where we were? And we saw the shadow as we were leaving?
Coatsworth was inside the hole when you went through, as you were going through. And with that, I will believe I will take us to our break.
Okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Back from our 10-minute break. I hope you're all enjoying the show for tonight. It would be cool if you were watching it live, but I understand that that's not always possible. Wherever you are, I hope you're safe and healthy, and I hope you hit the subscribe button and the like button. I just always wanted to say that. But anyway, thank you very much for watching tonight. We are back. When we last left our heroes, they had apparently stepped through some sort of portal, some sort of doorway, by inhaling a blend of, well, psychedelic snuff, for lack of a better term. And they were in mid-transport, being stretched between Boston and presumably Tremontaine, the Vagavurian equivalent of Boston, the city of Boston. Our hero, Dietrich, had actually rolled a natural 20, and for which he gets a major effect. And as the group was cycling and twisting through this passage, this tunnel, this doorway, this gateway between worlds, he observed that the shadow within this tunnel that was entwining itself into the group was Harold Coatsworth III, none other. Now, he does get a major effect at this moment. So I'm hoping that in the 10 minutes that we took a break, because I didn't remind him to do this, but in the 10 minutes that we took a break, I hope that he was thinking, and because I have grown up with this gentleman, I know that he's probably thought of at least 147 different things he wants to do with his major effect rolled on a 20, and he's going to try to twist my arm to get all of them done and 7 more. So tell me what your top 1 or 2 are, Jared.
Does he seem, lack of a better word, corporeal within this dimensional door that we were going through?
Without rolling, he seems as corporeal as you in this dimensional doorway as you are all moving through it. And this happens in the fraction of a... Mm-hmm.
Right. Is he sort of moving in the same direction we are, or was he coming from the opposite way?
Good question. He seemed as if he were waiting, first of all, and as you kind of catapult or launch yourselves through, it seems as if he's about to pursue.
I want to effectively kick him out of the stream, either to the side or back down to Earth. One of them, either way.
I request one thing from this. Please don't say kick him out of the stream. It makes me very nervous because I start thinking that we're going to have streaming problems.
It's very superstitious.
Can we? Yeah, I know. It's like a superstitious baseball player.
I will turn off his Wi-Fi.
Oh, no. Oh my goodness, you're making me nervous over here, and I had just started relaxing. I thought we had this one. So you would like to try and kick him out. So on a 20, here's what I'm going to say. Ordinarily, I would, you know what? It's a 20. It's a major effect. You want to kick him out? Absolutely. Never let it be said that this game master does not deliver on a major effect. Tell us what happens as you zip past him. He doesn't just try to pursue, but he sort of gets hung up. And tell us what happens to our newfound friend, Harold Coatsworth III.
I assume that he is attempting to reach out either towards Pascal or the child's family. Right?
You would be assuming correctly.
He's going after her.
Yeah.
All right. So sort of using his distracted intent against him, I'll kind of get around, just kind of use my foot and push right on the top of his head as we're going up, and kind of push him right back out, and give him the finger on the way out.
And with that, indeed, you do reach out, and what you see is a spaghetti-like limb that you have to blink several times to truly understand is actually your foot. And when you observe your foot kicking outward like that, you suddenly realize you don't have any control over it, but then a sense of calm overcomes you, and you realize things are different in here. And you think as if you're moving your foot as you normally would, and you manage to kick Coatsworth directly in the face.
Nice.
And what you see is his visage suddenly blinking and flickering a few times, twisting, his mouth agape, as you plant one right on his noggin, knocking him back, and he becomes like string, like spaghetti stretching out, reaching out for you, angry, furious, but then tumbling ultimately backward as he drops, the last of him you see hitting the ground in the crypt where those three figures were once huddled, the child's family. And like like a tightening circle, the portal closes, and as if it were never there, you are shot through it, and you and your companions twist and turn your way through the fabric of time and space, a psychedelic display of lights and colors. There's a sound like a shockwave, a boom. And as you look upward, for those of you that are doing so, what you see is something very odd. You see an aurora of lights, and within the aurora, you see what looks like a child's gyroscopic top, and it's spinning very quickly. And then it begins to slow down. And as you approach this gyroscopic top, it goes so slowly that you can see that these four immense rings are easily the size of a planet. And this is something you just know, you just feel, and you're hurtling towards them. And at the center of these four rings, as they slow, and what you really see is all of time and space around you slowing down so that you restore yourselves to a normal speed, you hurtle toward 4, 3, 2, 1, the innermost ring, which surrounds what looks like a large glistening moon. And this ring, however, is very, very odd, because it looks as if it's composed of, it looks at first like mountainous, but then what you realize you're looking at are the leaves on a single twisted vine that twists its way in a ring around this moon. And on each of these leaves are flickering lights, and you continue to descend. You continue to move downward. These flickering lights actually become the lights of small cities, villages, and towns built on these leaves. And there's one in particular that you start to descend upon. And looking at it, it looks vaguely familiar. It looks like a shape you've seen often on maps. A leaf rotting at the edges, rotting in the shape of what you would call Boston. And still, you descend faster and faster, hurtling, until the psychedelic lights all around you begin to disappear and you pass through a layer of that aurora. And as you pass through that layer, what you see around you appear to be spirits moving back and forth, swimming within the aurora. A few of them actually look at you. A few of them look at you with the eyes that almost frighten you, eyes that sometimes make you laugh, eyes that look like those of children, eyes that look like those of adults, eyes of humans, eyes of animals, eyes of otherworldly creatures and beasts, the likes of which you've never seen before. And you continue and pop out the other side of the aurora, and as you fall, you realize you're falling toward what would be the north end of Boston, and the edges of that rotting leaf that is now in the shape of Boston, and where the Charles River should be, there's just an empty space shaped like the edge of the leaf. And on the other side, where Cambridge should be, another leaf rotting as well and shaped vaguely like Cambridge, with lights on. But you're falling towards the north end. And the north end, it seems, is composed at first of what look like small little hills and mountains. But as you descend quickly, they appear to be more like stone or maybe rock. But then as you continue to descend, and now you wonder how it is you're actually going to stop, how you're going to slow, how you're going to survive. You see that what you're traveling toward is the wreckage of wooden ships. But these ships have no sails. They do have lights illuminating them. And they all sit resting on the edges of this rotting leaf on the north end. And as if you're about to slam into the ground, you all shut your eyes for just a moment, and then there's nothing but silence and a cool feeling of breeze, like a sea breeze, across your skin. And as you open your eyes, the boy and Cloudy are very simply brushing themselves off as if they do this all the time. The boy himself is holding on to the 3 desiccated corpses, which now look not human yet. There's still a little bit of a skeletal look beneath their skin, but they look as if they're coming around. They're awakening, as the boy was telling you before. And looking around you, it's dark. And above, that aurora, where you remember seeing those spirits, those eyes, sensing those beings and creatures. Across the Charles, or where the Charles would be, you can see the lights of what should be Cambridge, but there's nothing between them. There's nothing but blackness. And looking out across and over Cambridge, you see those other rings. Ring, the second ring, the third ring, the fourth ring. And they're each at different heights, as if they were all slowly coming together to a line. And each one has a different color to it, a different look, a different feel. And when you look behind you, you see that moon floating. How far out, you're not sure. 12 miles? 100 miles? Looking downward, you see other leaves, all lit up with the lights of cities and towns and villages. And here you stand among the wreckage of ships with no sails, ships made of wood, ships strung together with rope that creak gently in the wind, and a fog passing over you from where the Charles and Massachusetts Bay should be.
I know what this is. The rings, the concentric rings. This is right out of Plato. This is Atlantis. We're in Atlantis.
Cloudy looks up. He cocks his head at you and smiles. He steps over what appear to be like rocks, and as if you're on a shore, but it's made out of the rotting matter of leaves. For all intents and purposes, it's like a sandy dirt, but it's not quite like that. He looks at you, cocks his head, and smiles. He pats you on the shoulder. There's a lot you don't know, but good guess. And he and the boy look at each other, and the boy tends to the three corpses as they've now filled with more life.
I didn't want to ruin the vibe because that was an excellent description, but I would like to give XP to TBD, if that's a possibility, for the ingenuity, saving our butts, and panache towards our great enemy.
Second.
All right.
Thank you.
The motion is carried then. We have a second. We don't need a third. Sorry about that, Steve. But actually, that's me too. We just need a couple of people.
Steve didn't want him to have it, but...
That's right.
Yeah. So we give an extra point of XP, and we nominate each other with each game. So sure, go ahead. Please do. Please take that XP. And so what are we up to now, gentlemen? What would we like to do?
Well, why are we here? And I'm asking this to Cloudy. Why are we here? We've been brought along for this ride. We want to help, but why are we here? What are we here to do?
You need to. We hope that you would escort us the final few feet to the finish line. We're not quite done yet. We need to get these three. As you saw back there, nicely done, Mr. Dietrich. Thank you for that. As you saw, our pursuers are still on their way. Quickly now, we must move. Quickly. And he motions to the boy to come with him. And the boy is trying to help these three, who are now kind of shuffling. And before they had really only had to just sort of stand up. But now that they're standing up and they need to move, you can kind of clearly see that they're having a lot of trouble with this. And they're kind of like trying to put one foot after the other as they move forward one step at a time. And their teeth sometimes clattering. And you can see now, and you're not sure looking at it, but is there blood pumping through their veins now? Is there color to their flesh? Do you see some sort of dim light in their eyes? Is the color returning to their hair? And the boy is trying to help them, but there's three of them, and the boy calls to Cloudy, we can't go so fast, not so fast, they need time. There's no time, we must go. We must. And Cloudy moves to try and help them himself. But
I'll move in to help as well.
And then Dietrich goes in to help. And Dietrich, which one are you helping?
I'm gonna help John the father. Is that what his name was?
Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
it was what happened is you said that and I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, I need to really look that up because it's just slipped my mind." But yes, it is John and Alice are the couple. So you move to help John, and John, as you step beside him, he just before when you had been in the crypt, he had just reeked, with the smell of moss, and you know, he had his clothing was worm ridden. And now all of that seems to have kind of dissolved away. And his clothing is not in great shape, that is for certain. But now it appears at least to be kind of dry, softer. And as you place your hands to help him move along, it's kind of a creepy feeling. He's thin and skeletal. And he looks at you. And his eyes turn to you. And there's this sense, these dried out eyes that were once these like white raisins with pupils in them, wrinkled, as if these eyes were moving in sockets lined with sandpaper. And he mouths, "Thank you." As you help him step forward, and Cloudy is helping now, and the boy is helping now with the child. Would any of you like to help out, or?
Yeah, I'll assist, maybe with Alice, and kind of move same way that TBD did with John.
Same thing happens, and you're giving her, the best that you can, and she's light. She feels like to you a bag of bones, if you'll pardon the expression. And you can kind of feel the thin, leathery skin, like tissue paper, moving slowly over a dried wood. But as you move, and as Cloudy and the boy kind of lead you all, you step forward, and they start to make their way between the ships. And looking at each one, these are all ships. You can kind of see their keel. None of them are built with sails at all, but they look like some sort of exotic sort of build that you've never seen before. They're not too outlandish, and you do recognize from looking at a few of them that there appears to be some roots from where you've been before. You recognize some of these ships by their architecture and by their engineering. But then there are some that are very strange. And as you see, they have a texture to them almost like skin, as if they had veins. And a few of them are kind of throbbing as you move around and past them. And what you kind of realize you're walking through, or at least you feel as if you're walking through, is some sort of graveyard on the shores of what would be the North End, but is now what the boy is calling the riots. And as you pass some of these, you see that there are holes in the hulls, and inside you think you might hear activity, but you're not really sure. And every so often, it is clear, though, that in some of them you're seeing flickering lights. You're seeing life. And every so often, as you look into the deep shadows, into the bellies of these ships, you see forms that you don't recognize the profiles of, the silhouettes of. But Cloudy keeps moving you toward one thing that stands out through all of this, and one thing that you had not seen before, and that is a lighthouse. A single column with an enormous set of windows on top, and a light that burns and rotates at the top. And this lighthouse is actually, when you start looking around, it's probably where, you're not sure, but it's where maybe that Old North church was before. Are you doing anything as you're continuing onward? I'd like to remind Murphy that you still feel the heat of whatever it was that you picked up in your pocket.
Well, honestly, before my mind goes to my pocket, it's been a long day. So as we're kind of shuffling along, I'm going to reach inside and pull out a Pall Mall cigarette,
Mm-hmm.
light it with a match, light it up. Cigarettes aren't necessarily my thing. It's one of those icebreakers to make friends, but I just need to relax a little bit.
You flick it.
And
How do you light it?
With my fingertip.
It doesn't light.
At all?
Nope.
Damnedest thing. I pull out and it's not the matchbox we have today, but I try and strike against the corner of that matchbox. No
Doesn't
light?
light.
Son of a bitch.
I try mine. I have one of the Dragon's Fire lighters that the soldiers used.
Oh. From from the Great War.
From the Great War.
World War
trench
I would
lighter.
be an anachronism because...
Right.
Give it a try. Tell us how it works, too. We want to know, just out of interest. What do you mean by this?
I don't remember exactly how it works, but I know that effectively, I guess whatever the filament is, it just kind of sticks in, you pull it right back out, and it just lights.
Yeah.
And it pretty much
like
works every time.
It's kind of like phosphorescent flare that...
Yeah.
You give it a quick flick and try it, nothing happens.
All right, I want to ask Cloudy about this. Why doesn't fire work here?
He laughs. Looking to light your cigarette, and he hands Murphy a book of matches. And sure enough, you flick it, and it lights. And as you take a look at the logo, you don't recognize this logo at all. But what you do recognize is that the writing across the top is in that same language, those same markings that you noticed Vesper looking at on the wall just a few moments ago. And Cloudy goes on to explain chemicals have different properties in different worlds. And in this one, most of the time, you'll find that most things don't work the same way as they work back on Earth, back in Boston. You may have some adjustments that you may have to make, but hopefully this will not take long and we can send you back to your own world.
Does gunpowder work here?
That's kind
No.
of what I was thinking.
Your gunpowder? No. Your weapons. I saw you, of course, using them. They are useless here. You will need bullets made and manufactured here, or at least with the same properties as those here. The powder has many uses, many properties, but it also has limitations. Fire. Spark is one of them.
Are we going to the lighthouse?
We are. He looks up at it. We'll talk to the society there. The society will know what to do. And when he says the society, what he's talking about is the Society for the Preservation. Well, he mentioned the society before. You assume he's talking about the Society for the for the Preservation of New England Antiquities. The card that he gave you in our first game.
And they're in the beacon.
They are.
The lighthouse. There are?
There is a
Oh,
council who we'll discuss these matters with, and they will know what to do. But for now, I worry that perhaps, though Dietrich was clever and fast, I worry that eventually Coatsworth III will catch up with us. Let us make haste. And he continues to walk forward and twisting through the beach, and you're slowly getting closer towards this lighthouse. And now as you're going, you realize you're kind of going up an incline, and you kind of see out across the edge of the beach, which is really a rotting leaf, and you can see across what should be Massachusetts Bay, but instead there's nothing there. And as you look down, you can see layers of leaves with villages and cities on top of many of them, but many that are actually just simply dark. Miles and miles away. And all connected through this enormous trunk of a vine.
what is this place called, Lenny?
Vagaver, he shouts over his shoulder. These are the ring realms of Vagaver. They are the hub, the intersection. What is it you call Boston? The hub, is that correct? You say it as a joke, but some jokes have a basis in fact. The ring realms of Vagaver are the hub of all of time and space. And he continues to make haste for the lighthouse.
I'm going to lag behind the group, both because of my pace, but also to just get a little separation so I can examine what goodies I have in my pocket.
Okay. And what were you saying there, Vesper? You had an idea?
Just very simply, I'm not lagging in the back, but I'm kind of spacey off to the side as we're hurrying, and I'm muttering to myself because I'm in wonder at this moon and these different layers that we see, and I'm muttering to myself about evening and Venus, and I'm using that kind of contemplative mood to do a recovery roll because I haven't gotten to do that yet.
Of course. Go right ahead. 1d6. Of course, a recovery roll is 1d6 plus your tier. So your tier right now is 1.
Great. I got a 4. Thank you.
Nice. I know you guys are getting, for lack of a better word, parched. Spent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting late.
If I might, I have a philosophy theology skill, and I kind of just want to run this experience through my knowledge and see if I can make any kind of connections or ideas. I kind of hinted at it, with the Atlantis reference.
Yeah.
But just want to see, if I can glean anything. So I'm going to use effort, and I'm skilled, so that's 2 levels.
Yeah,
and
you're easing the task by 2.
And I rolled a 10.
Tell me what you kind of want to know. What are you looking for? So you were associating this with Atlantis. Tell me a little bit more.
I guess maybe from the perspective of my Christian cosmology, heaven, hell, purgatory, other fantastical worlds, where would I place this within that cosmology?
This is some sort of purgatory. That's your general feeling. And you would have to tell me, from your knowledge of religion, of earthbound religion, how you would interpret it, and then maybe I can tweak it for you and kind of let you know here or there. Tweak it in one direction or another. How do you interpret purgatory to be?
Well, from the strict Catholic definition, it's kind of an in between realm where the souls of those that are not damned go to be purged of their sins and prepared for time in heaven. So it's but I think the nature of it, I think certainly Dante's Divine Comedy mentions it. I'm not too familiar with exactly how he described it, but what my sense is.
You're saying Z the character or you yourself?
Well, me myself, I don't know too much about it.
Oh, let me pull out my book of my Dante's Inferno here right next to me.
But from my understanding of the Catholic traditions, it's that it's a place where I think it's a place of learning and communing with God, but it's like and the longer the more sinful your life was, the longer you spend in purgatory before your soul is ready for heaven.
As you're kind of
No, I would say I think Z would think passing into this realm might be kind of an in-between step for between death and life.
Cloudy himself slows a bit and he notices that you are thinking. He does inquire.
Sees the smoke.
Is this what would you like to explain these things to him, or are you going to be more private about it?
No, I can talk to him. Yeah.
He would then return that you are not far off, my friend. However, there is no plan in this case to this purgatory. My limited knowledge, and the society will be able to explain more, but from my limited knowledge, Vagaver is like a valve between the tangible and the intangible realms. Those realms where our spirits exist, our souls exist, and those realms where our corporeal bodies exist. Vagaver is the hub, is the valve, is the passage between the two. This is what I know. This is what I understand. But for a more detailed explanation, we may wish to talk to the society. I can assure you that the council, whoever is there tonight, whoever is on duty tonight, whoever is watching and waiting tonight, will be most grateful for what you have done, and they will explain what they can.
And are this council, are these celestial beings? Are they what we would call angels? Who are they?
He laughs. If you're expecting celestial beings, then you may be disappointed.
Okay.
They're a little more, shall we say, down to earth than that.
All right. Fair enough.
And so the group continues forward. Is anyone else checking anything out? Oh, I'm sorry. You had hung back, Murphy, because you wanted to check out what was in your pocket, correct?
Yeah, especially because it feels warm in an area I might not want to get too warm.
That's
Keep
right.
your pants.
Are you going to pull them out of the pocket, or are you keeping them in your pocket?
No, I'm going to pull them out. I've got no better way to observe what they could be.
As you pull them out, they're made from one of them you recognize as being kind of built from what appears to be, or carved from what appears to be wood. And it's an oblong shape. Touching it, you can see that this is covered in those markings that you're now getting very familiar with. And as you pass your finger across those markings, you have an experience similar to that of Vesper earlier on in the evening, in that it appears as if this lettering is raised. But it's as you pass your finger across it, it's smooth. And you look at it and you realize it's three-dimensional of some sort. And it has buttons and just very gently built into it or carved out of it. They look more like raised ridges and edges. And then the other two, one of them appears to be made out of stone. And it's similar in that it has ridges and buttons and raised edges on it, just as the first. And the third and final one is made from some material that you've never, ever encountered in your life. It's almost soft to the touch and yet is incredibly strong, and it's got those ridges, edges, bumps, and buttons on it. And as you click them together, they feel very, very hot to the touch.
Collectively, they feel hot. It's not just any one particular of the three?
Collectively, they feel hot. There's no reason I'm going to a random table to roll on in my Numenera book right now. Please talk amongst yourselves.
Damned curious.
So I guess, yeah, how about them Red Sox? They won the game. That's pretty great. Too bad we missed it, being in a ring realm.
Hey, Vesper. Because you're kind of off by yourself, muttering over there. Come take a look at these.
I pull myself out of it a little bit and then look back and...
Vesper, you do recognize that writing.
Look, what other artifacts you found?
Yeah, from the crypt. What do you make of them? This one seems to be wooden. This one's rock, and other than like a little piggy joke or something like that, I can't make hide or hair of them.
They seem like
the more you click
objects
them together, the hotter they get.
I'm going to stop clicking them together then.
Oh!
I'm not finding
going
that random table.
Yeah. I will use my skill of identifying to try and identify these objects.
Sure. Tell me how it works, or tell us all how it works.
Well, I will look upon them.
Yeah.
And think about the materials.
Yeah.
And cross-reference those with the vast knowledge. I feel like I've done this before.
They're getting very hot in your hand.
I'm not touching
your pocket, Murphy.
They're out. They're in my hand and out. I'm not putting them back in my pocket if they're getting even hotter.
Where are you
I kind of like roll one around in his hands. Like, what do they feel like? Yes.
They're pretty warm right now.
Getting very
They're
hot.
getting warmer, are they?
This is like a Laurel and Hardy skit.
Can we eat them?
Do the I don't know, the ridges on them or buttons or anything, do they seem similar between the objects, or is it all fairly? Is it just the shape of them?
I'm sorry. So what I was saying is that they have similar kind of features, but they all look like they're very different. Now, if you want to roll to identify them, go ahead and tell me how the roll works, and then I will let you make that roll. And if it's something identifiable, I will help you identify it.
I will identify it using my trained identifying skill. Okay. And I will, in fact, expend an effort because they seem quite interesting. In fact,
because they're getting very hot.
And I'm not going to go too fast because I can see how far we are from the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And I'm a little salty about seeing Murph take that stylus object. And he's expressing that they're very hot, and perhaps he's kind of like, ooh, hot potato. And
he hasn't revealed the stylus yet, actually.
I saw him take it, but I did not reveal.
That's what I meant, is that he hasn't told you. That's all I meant.
Right, is not getting hot. These are.
Well, why don't you check your pocket on that, Murphy?
Is the stylus getting hot too?
I don't know. You're going to have to touch it.
I'm going to put my hand in my pocket where the stylus is.
Hold still. I'm trying to identify these stones.
I gotta put these on the ground. They're getting hot.
When you place your hand on it, it is comfortably cool. Ooh, it feels good, in fact.
I like
it feels natural in your hand, and it seems to slip into your hand the way a pencil might slip into your hand.
I'm gonna pull it out of my pocket and just, hey, look at this. This is pretty sweet. I'm not gonna say that. I'm just gonna pull it out.
I put 2 and 2 together as to where I think the writing came from, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You still got to make that roll.
Okay. An 11.
11. Okay, roll a percentile die.
82.
You identify that this very first object is actually, to metagame or out of game, is what would be known as a cipher. But to you, it's a simple device. Looking at it, you realize that if you engaged this item, when affixed to another device that affects a single target at range, that range is increased to 1 mile with no penalties. Space is temporarily warped in terms of seeing and reaching the target. If direct line of sight is important to the device's effect, it remains important. Creating that spatial warp functions as one use of the device. So do me a favor, because I'm going to have to go back and check all this. Murphy or Vesper, if you could write down page 287, spatial warp, Numenera discovery. Okay, because I'm gonna have to
You
go
said
back to
when
that.
it was attached to what, a weapon or anything, or what?
When affixed to another cipher device
Oh,
that affects a single target at range, that range is increased to 1 mile. So in other words, if it's affixed to another cipher that is like a gun, we'll say, it will increase the range to 1 mile with no penalties. Okay. Go ahead and make another D20 roll and tell me if you want to expend any effort or anything like that. For the
no more effort. I can't really afford that anymore.
Okay.
So I'll just ease it by 1. 16.
16. Go ahead and roll another percentile.
47.
47. This is another cipher. It is called a lightning wall projector. Okay? So it creates a wall of electric bolts up to 30 feet by 30 feet by 1 foot that inflicts damage equal to the cipher level on anything that passes through it. The wall conforms to the space available. It lasts for 10 minutes. Please write down lightning wall projector, page 282, Numenera discovery. Every time I do this, I get $1 from Monty Cook Games. I'm just kidding. I don't get anything. I wish I did. Monty, are you listening?
Are you listening?
I've got coffee and I've got Patreon.
Well, then we should keep rolling on the table then.
Yeah, let's just keep rolling and I'll keep pulling this up.
Ciphers for everybody.
Wait until you figure out how much money I get every time I eat a Dorito on this show.
Oh, jeez.
We're also sponsored by Doritos, folks.
Yeah.
So page 282, lightning wall projector, Numenera discovery. Go ahead and make a D20 roll for that very last.
4.
Item. 4. You're not sure what this is.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely in keeping with the others. I'm going to say that at this moment, you're not really sure. It might take somebody else to identify this thing.
Okay.
Okay? So that third item is unidentified as of the moment.
I'm going to lift this lightning wall projector thing away from Murphy.
From Murphy? It's probably a good idea.
That's one of the hot ones. You can have it.
That's the hottest one.
I think it'll be fine. And I put it in a pocket of my jacket.
Mhm.
And I point to the first one, the target spatial warp thing.
Yeah.
This will be useful if we come upon some other objects. Keep these safe. There's power here.
Now, I want to remind everyone. Well, I won't remind anybody a nuttin at this point because you're just sort of discovering these things as we go along. But I will say this. When you are carrying 3 of these things, Murphy, they all
That's when they
seem-
get hot.
Yes. 2 seems
Yeah.
a little better. So I'm not sure if you're carrying any other subtle ciphers with you or if you've
I still have
expended
one.
them.
So I'm feeling like these things will still get pretty warm on me.
Yeah. What you've noticed is
Because
that...
I have outside, that's metagame, a limit
Yeah.
of...
Right. Right. You may want to hand them off. So metagaming outside, so everybody knows, you all have a cipher limit of 2 or 3. And I think that goes up with your tiers. But for now, just so you know, if you're carrying 2 over the limit of whatever your type is, then they're going to feel hot, and you're going to start feeling kind of uneasy as if, well, maybe this isn't such a good idea.
I think I still have one active from last game. It actually lasts some number of hours, I think.
Lasts like 7 games.
Oh, for like the next day.
Duration 1 campaign.
Yeah. This one's it's a full day. So does that count as like carrying it still?
Yes, it's still working.
Great.
And just to be certain, the 3 objects are ciphers, but the stylus is not.
That's not the feeling you get. It feels like a simple device to you.
After I take that first one,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like this. Maybe find someone else for the others.
Yeah.
And so at this point,
Give
you can distribute
TBD a
them.
hot foot. Yeah, we'll catch up with the group.
All right. So unless anyone is doing anything else, you are now at the entrance to this lighthouse.
I just wanted to keep track and using geography and my knowledge of Boston to kind of keep track and see how the 2 sort of relate to each other as we move.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we
and-
on the Freedom Trail?
You're
Where's Cheers?
You're on the psychedelic trip trail at this point. You don't recognize this from any Freedom Trail at this point. But what, of course, you do remember as you approach that lighthouse, which now, Dietrich, you're fairly certain based on like the elevation, based on looking out over like maybe roughly where the rotting edges of the leaf that you're on is. You're fairly certain as you look up at that light, that blazing light that spins ever so slowly. An old line echoes through your head. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea.
That was the North Church.
Frank, you're not there.
I'm catching up.
Jared, you shouldn't have to write that down.
Memorizing it.
I do appreciate it, though. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. And you make it to the stoop outside the lighthouse. And Cloudy breathes a sigh of relief. And without even thinking, the young boy, Pascal, pushes his way past all of you, moving along with the child, with Elizabeth. And now Elizabeth seems as if she's moving a little quicker. And now what you see are flakes of dead skin that are kind of peeling off of her, revealing pink flesh beneath. The flesh of a newborn. And you notice that she gives a few more sniffs. And she's breathing deeper now, breathing in the foggy air of the shores of Vagaver, of the riots, this area that you would call the North End. And the two of them run into the lighthouse, into a great hall, which is empty. And there are tables around with desks and notes, and there are two stairwells on either side that curve around the edge of the lighthouse, and they go up to the next floor. And the two of them go running through, and they head towards one of them and start going up the stairs, and you hear their feet, their shoes, clanking against each step as they rush up. And then Cloudy smiles and sighs. And there's something about his posture now that changes. And he's still the kind of stiff fellow that he was before, but he's now relaxed. He seems relieved as each one of you files into this bottom floor of the lighthouse. And when the last one of you enters, I assume that's you, Murphy, he closes the door, throws a few locks on it, leans against the doorway, and he begins to chuckle. Chuckle with the relief, the giddiness of someone who's just escaped a great danger and is happy to be alive.
Are we safe here? Could Coatsworth follow us into the building?
He stops for a moment. He theoretically could, but I doubt. With the precautions we've taken, I doubt that he will. It is possible. But quickly, we must go see the council.
Lead away.
Where's the council? Up the
There's the
stairs?
council.
And he heads up those same stairs, and I assume that all of you are following. And as you look around, what you basically see, I don't know if any of you have been in a lighthouse, and now I'm talking in character as the narrator now. If you have, then you recognize everything. There's nothing out of place, nothing strange, nothing unusual, except for the fact that, occasionally you catch a glance at a note here or there. You see a calendar on the wall. You see things that should be written in English or at least in some sort of language that you recognize, but none of it looks like anything you've ever seen before. And only you, Vesper, and you, Murphy, who were looking at the etchings, the scratch marks on the wall, recognize this writing. And of course, when I say recognize, I mean the term loosely. I mean only that you...
It's familiar looking.
Yes. And you head up the stairs, your shoes and boots clanking on what might be metal, or maybe it's some other sort of material, up these stairs, up into another smaller room, and then up one more time until you reach a room, a waiting room, filled with leather chairs and a kitchen and large tables as if there were a dining room, or like out of a dining room. There's a pool table there. And in this room, there are several ravens. Some of them sitting on the backs at the heads of the leather chairs. Some of them perched on windowsills. One of them pecking at a wooden door. And on many of the features within this room, it has the air of a club, like a gentleman's club, perhaps. And there's this scent, this vague scent of what might be cigar smoke, but you're not quite sure. And as you enter, you see that there are attendants. For all intents and purposes, as you look at them, they appear to be human, and you don't even doubt that they are human. But they are attendants dressed in clothing that looks familiar, like what you would see back home in Boston, but isn't quite familiar. There's something odd and different, maybe the cut of a shirt or the tailoring of some buttons, or the colors don't look like the ones that are in fashion right now. Even some of the haircuts of these attendants as they work to clean the kitchen, or as they set up the pool table, or as they shoo some of these ravens out of the way, they look a little off. But when they see Cloudy and the boy, they smile. And one of the attendants looks up, holding a vase, and nearly drops it when he sees Elizabeth shuffle forward, now at a quicker speed, toward that door with the raven pecking at it. You gentlemen can react, or we can continue.
How many attendants are there again?
I'll say there are 3.
Just taking it all in.
And Cloudy looks at each one of you. Let's go. Let's go. They know we're coming. They know we're coming. And he nods and looks to the attendants, who smile. And then the little girl, Elizabeth, pushes the door open. And as you enter a room cramped, filled with books, desks, papers, all strewn about. And there is another table, or I should say another pool table. This one, though, is heavier, larger than the first. And standing around the table are what look like human men. And off in a corner, sitting in a chair at a desk, is a single woman, bent over her desk, writing.
Aaron Tarn.
The three men, one is dressed in white, with a bushy white mustache and wild white hair. The other one has a dark mustache and is dressed in a black suit with a rather older looking tie and a white shirt, and his hair oiled down. And the last one is wearing a suit that you recognize. It's a suit of the time. It's a suit of now, of Boston. And he's thin and gaunt looking. And these 3 men, each one with a pool cue in their hand, are chatting around the pool table. And the one with the bushy white mustache and wild white hair looks up and smiles. He looks as if he weren't expecting to see Cloudy here. And then he moves forward and embraces him. And in an accent that can only be described as a southern accent, he says, "Well, well, well, Mr. Cloudy, I had not imagined that I would see you again. And look who you have brought here." And he gets down on one knee. And Elizabeth, now with much of her skin flaking off, but looking like she's got the skin of a newborn child, moves forward and embraces this man. And my goodness, the whole family's here too. And he stands. And the other two and the woman at her desk just look at each other and nod, as if perhaps they had been expecting all of this. And he looks over at the family, the one with the bushy white mustache and the wild hair. And he ushers them in and asks them to sit. And as he does so, he goes to a humidor which he opens up. He removes a cigar, and with a lighter he lights it. And he takes several puffs. Well now, Mr. Cloudy, you are just full of surprises. Just full of them. And as he says this, the raven from the doorway that had been pecking at the door flies into the room, flies over the man with the cigar and the white suit, white hair, and bushy white mustache, waves it away. It flies and alights on the pool table where it starts to dig up the beautiful green velvet. And the man in white frowns. And he looks at that man with the black mustache, the black suit. And he says, Edgar, if you do not control those ravens, I swear I will shoot each and every one of them myself. Forgive me.
Crispy.
And he looks back at all of you. And I think with that, we've come to the end of tonight's adventure. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you all had a great time. Thank you to my players. And again, if you like what you saw, please give us a thumbs up and think about hitting that subscribe button. Have a very good week. We will see you back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.